is your Unit 4 Equations Study Guide. And just a quick reminder, for each problem, the correct answer is given. We're giving you the answer right here. But we want to make sure that you're showing work, that you know how to do the algebra. So make sure you are showing work on each problem or you will not get credit. Okay, so number 1, we know the answer is going to be -4. Okay, keeping that in mind, we're going to try to get -4. All right, so line down the equal sign, and we have parentheses here, so our first step will be to use the distributive property to clear the parentheses. So on the right side of the equation, 5 times 5 is 25, and 5 times 6x is 30x. And on the left side, we have -95. So that would be our first step to clear the parentheses using the distributive property. Okay, next it looks like we can start using our inverse operations to isolate the variable. So here's our variable. So let's clear out this 25 first. So -95 minus 25 equals -120. And on the right side, we have 30x. And then our final step here, to get x by itself, 30 is being times by x. So we use the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. And our final answer, x, is -4, just like it said our answer should be. Okay, but you need to make sure you're showing all of the steps, the whole process. Okay, number 2 looks similar to number 1. I do see a set of parentheses here. So we want to clear those out first by using the distributive property. And keep in mind, for this one, we're going to try to get an answer of 5. Okay, so -2 times 1 is -2, and -2 times 8x is -16x. All right, and I bring down my -82. All right, now we want to isolate this variable. So our next step is to clear out this -2 by adding 2 to both sides. That gives us -80 on the left, and we're left with -16x on the right. Our final step is to undo multiplication with division. We're going to divide both sides by -16, which does give us a +5. So we got it right. Our answer is 5, and we got that right. All right, more parentheses for number 3, and we're working toward an answer of 6. Okay, so we'll distribute first. 7 times x is 7x, and 7 times 6 is 42. We also have a -3 on the left side. Okay, so distribute first to clear the parentheses. Next, we look to see if there's any like terms, and I do see right here a +42 minus 3. We can simplify that. So +42 minus 3, that will give us 39. And we still have 7x, 39, and 81. Okay, once we get it to this, now we have a 2-step equation, and this is where you guys are getting really good at solving these. Let's subtract 39 on both sides. 81 minus 39 equals 42. Final step, we're going to divide both sides by 7, and x equals 6, which is what we were supposed to get. Okay, make sure you're showing all of the work and all the steps to get there. Okay, getting a little longer problems now. Here's our equal sign. We do have a set of parentheses, so we want to distribute first. Okay, so 6 times -5 is -30, and 6 times a +3n is going to be 18n. Let's not forget to bring this 3n down in our equation. Okay, so that's our first step to clear the parentheses using the distributive property. Now we look to see if there's any like terms on the same side, which there is. We have 3n and 18n, and they're on the same side of the equation, so I can just add those together. So that becomes 21n, and then we still have the minus 30, and set that equal to 135. Okay, now we're here at our two-step equation, so we should know what to do from here. Here's our variable, so we want to clear out this 30 next, add 30 to both sides. 21n is negative 105. And then the final step, we're going to divide by 21 to get n by itself. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So it worked, we get negative 5. Okay, for number 5, we know the answer is going to be negative 6. Okay, so line down the equal sign. Ooh, and I recognize that we have variables on both sides. So we want to get our variables together first. I like to move the smaller variable, the 2, over to the bigger variable, but you could try it the other way if you want. So that leaves us with a negative 1 on the left side, and then 4x minus 2x is 2x. Okay, and here's our two-step equation. Here's my variable. So I want to clear 11 out next. Okay, so that gives us a negative 12 equals 2x. And then the final step, divide by 2, and I think we've got it. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Okay, let's go ahead and put our line down the equal sign. And for number 6, we're trying to get an answer of negative 2. All right, notice we have 8v and 5v, and then over here is another v. But since these two are together on the same side, I can simply combine them. 8v minus 5v is 3v. Okay, then I'm going to bring everything else down. Okay, now we have variables on both sides of the equation. Now let's get those together. I'm going to move the smaller v, the negative 2v, to join the 3v. Okay, so that gives us 5v plus 11 equals 1. And now you should be comfortable here solving a two-step equation. Subtract 11 on both sides. And then our final step, divide both sides by 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. A negative divided by a positive is negative 2. So we got it. Okay, moving on. Let's see, line down the equal sign. We're trying to get a negative 2 again. But I do see parentheses, so I would like to clear those first using the distributive property. So that 7 gets multiplied by both terms. 7 times 3 is 21, and 7 times a positive 5 is 35n. And I'm going to write everything else down. Okay, now we have variables on both sides. So let's get those together next. I'm going to move the smaller variable over to join the larger variable. By doing that, you're avoiding negatives. Kind of saves you time and hassle in the long run. Okay, so 35 minus 7. So that's 28n. Okay, and here's our comfortable two-step equation. Let's use our inverse operations. I'm going to subtract 21 on both sides. And that's going to give us negative 56 equals 28n. Divide both sides by 28. And 56 divided by 28, a negative divided by a positive, that's going to give us negative 2, which is what we were shooting for. Okay, this one looks like it has a lot of steps, but we'll just take it one at a time. We're trying to get an answer of 8. I see parentheses, which reminds me that I have to do the distributive property first. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times a negative 2 is a negative 16x. And now I'm going to bring everything else down. Okay. Our next step is to combine any like terms that show up on the same side. So I see here we have a 40 minus 2. I can put those together or simplify that to be 38. And then I still have a minus 16x, a negative 8x, and a negative 26. Okay, simplifying a little by little. Next, we have variables on both sides. So let's get those together on our next step. I like to move the smaller amount over to join the bigger amount. So negative 16x is smaller than negative 8x. So I do the inverse, add 16x to both sides. And that gives us 8x minus 26. Okay, we're here at a two-step equation. We know what to do next. Here's our variable. We're going to add 26 to both sides. And that gives us 64. And then in the last step, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. And 64 divided by 8 is 8. So x equals 8, which is what we were going for. Okay, moving on, the directions for this one say for each problem, determine if there is one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions. Again, show your work or you will not get credit. All right, so let's move on to number 9. Okay, so let's see what happens. I do see parentheses, and that means we use that distributive property, which we've been using a lot on this review here. Okay, so 7 times 3, that's 21, and 7 times 5 is 35v, and we have 35v plus 14. Okay, so here I notice we have 35v on both sides, but then we have the other two numbers are different. So these are not twins or infinite solutions. Since we have variables on both sides, let's get those together next. So if I subtract 35v, here's something interesting that happens. The v's completely go away, and we are left with 21 equals 14. So here you would ask yourself, does 21 equal 14? Is that true or false? That is false. 21 does not equal 14. So therefore, this is an example of an equation that has no solution, because we end up with a false statement. Let's move on to number 10. Oh, okay, we have a lot of distributing to do again here. Okay, line down the equal sign. Okay, we're going to distribute a negative 3 this time. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 6. A negative times a negative is a positive. And negative 3 times a negative 4 is going to give us positive 12x. And then we have 8x and 38 on the left. Okay, so both sides look completely different, so I suspect this is going to be a one solution equation, but since we have to show work to get credit, I want to keep going. So since we have variables on both sides, I'm going to move this 8x to the other side by subtracting it. So 38 equals 18 plus 4x. And now we have a two-step equation. So my next step is to subtract 18 on both sides. And that gives me 20 equals 4x. The last step, divide both sides by 4, and x equals 5. Okay, so one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions. Well, here is an example where we get one answer. So our answer is one solution, which is what I suspected because both sides of the equal sign looked completely different. Okay, our last example, I'm assuming it's going to be infinite, but let's work it out because we have to show our work. And we're going to distribute first. Okay, so 5 times n is 5n, and 5 times 2 is 10. And then go ahead and bring everything else down. Okay, so now on the same side here, we can combine these. 10 minus 7 is going to be 3. So this is 5n plus 3. Ooh, and do you see that they are twins? They're the same thing on both sides. If we went one more step and got our variables together, I would subtract 5n on both sides. And I am left with 3 equals 3. Then ask yourself, true or false? Does 3 equal 3? Yes, true. So true means they're twins. So our answer is infinite solutions, or infinitely many solutions. Okay, because we got the same thing on both sides of the equation. Okay, a couple of word problems here. It says for each problem, define the variable, create an equation, and then solve the solution. So we have to make sure we're defining a variable, writing an equation, and then going ahead and solving. All right, Mark rented a bike from Beth's Bikes. It cost $10 plus $2 per hour. If Mark paid $22, then he rented the bike for how many hours? Okay, so you choose your letter, whatever your variable, or you can always stick with X if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and just do X. So let's pick out our important information and define our variable. So I know we have $10 plus $2 per hour. And then this is if he paid 22. That's going to be our total. Then how many hours did he rent the bike? So we're looking for the hours. So let's let X represent the hours that he's going to rent the bike. So let's write our equation. I'm just going to put it right here below since I have space here. So $10 plus 2 per hour, and he paid $22. So now there's our equation. So now we go ahead and solve that equation. Line down the equal sign. Here's a regular two-step equation. So we subtract 10 on both sides. 2x equals 12. Then we divide both sides by 2. So x equals 6 for our solution. And I'm going to put a little statement here. So he rented, so what is his name? So Mark rented the bike for 2 hours. I'm sorry, for 6 hours. Okay, so there we go. So make sure you did all the parts. You define the variable, you write the equation, and then you solve it. Okay, number 13, Grace is starting to babysit and is considering the amount of money she wants to charge for her services. Option A, she could charge $5 for gas, just driving to the house, and then $8 per hour. That's for option A. Option B would be $15 for gas and then $6 for each hour. At what point will the money she makes be the same? Okay, so that means we want option A to equal option B. Okay, so what's our variable going to be? I guess we're going to see when they're both the same, like how many hours they would have to work for both of them to be the same. So the hours to be the same. Okay, so let's write our equation. Again, I can't fit my equation on this line right here, so I'm writing my equation right here below. Okay, so option A is $5 for gas and $8 per hour. So option A looks like that. Option B is 15 for gas plus $6 for each hour. All right, so there's our equation. So we're going to go ahead and solve it. We have variables on both sides, so we know by now we want to get our letters together first. I like to move the smaller variable to join the larger variable. And that leaves us with 5 plus 2x equals 15. Now we go ahead and clear out this 5 next. So 2x equals 10, and then the final step, divide by 2. So x equals 5. So our solution is they have to work 5 hours for both options to be the same. They should have to babysit for 5 hours. Okay, so what that means, I guess she would think, like, if she's going to babysit more than 5 hours, then she has to figure out which plan is going to cost her the most. But they both would make the same amount at 5 hours of work. Question 14, Chicago Public Transportation offers 2 different plans for taking a bus. The first plan costs a rider $3 per bus ride. The second plan charges a flat fee of $20, and then it's just 50 cents for each ride. After how many bus rides would it take for the cost to be the same for each plan? Okay, so let X be the number of bus rides. Like how many times they're going to ride a bus. And then let's going to write our equation. So the key word is the same. So plan A is $3 per bus ride. That's plan A, or the first plan. The second plan is a flat fee of $20 and 50 cents for each ride. So our equation would look like that. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. Variables on both sides. So our first step would be to subtract the 50 cents x from one side, 50 cents x from the left side. Okay, so that gives us 250x. And then we're going to divide both sides by 250. And that works out to be 8. Okay, so our solution, x equals 8, that means at 8 bus rides, the cost for each plan would be the same. Okay, so there's our solution there. Okay, so make sure you have shown all of your work, all of the steps and everything, and this will look just like what you're going to be in for the final quiz.